Okay, good morning, everybody, and welcome to Action Coach here in Birmingham and to today's webinar. It's a lovely day outside and we're heading into a bank holiday weekend, so I hope you're all keeping well and safe. Today's webinar is all about leadership and how you can use this opportunity to show your leadership skills and be the great leader that I'm sure you and your organization need right now. My name is Steve Charman. I work for Action Coach in Birmingham, based at Fort Dunlop behind me. We've been having many fantastic conversations with business owners and senior managers over the last few weeks and months. And the one of the constant themes that comes up time and time again is about leadership and also about planning. And whilst today's webinar isn't about planning specifically, as a leader, you need to have a plan. And so it's really important that even if you had a plan before the lockdown started and before the current pandemic hit this country, you need to go back and review, revise, and make sure that that plan is fit for purpose. And whilst today's webinar isn't about planning, it is really important you have that in place as a leader in your organization. Just a bit about myself and Action Coach. So I've been working for Action Coach now for 2 years, but I have got over 15, 20 years experience in marketing communications across both the public, private and not-for-profit sectors. And I've had some great and also some very challenging experiences leading and managing teams, large teams in local authorities and in the private sector, and also teams that are spread around multiple locations. Most recently, before coming to Action Coach, I was working on HS2, and again, I was managing teams both in Manchester and Birmingham, so that remote working was very much present in my previous roles. One thing I do is I love to go mad every day. What does mad mean? It's about making a difference. So I hope that by the time I hit my pillow tonight, I'll have touched somebody, made a difference to somebody's life, and given them something that they can take away and contemplate and think about how they can use that information in their business, in their life. And so that's my ambition every day, and that's why I love working for Action Coach, because we share that ambition across the organization. We really want to reach out to you and other organizations right now to help ensure your organization survives and also thrives into the future. I'm also a training facilitator and mental health first aider. But I work for an organization called Action Coach, and you're probably wondering, well, who are Action Coach? We are the world's #1 and largest business coaching organization. We have over 1,000 offices in 80 countries worldwide. And I had the privilege of meeting Brad Sugars, our founder and funder, back in February this year in Edinburgh. And I said to Brad, I said, well, how big do you want Action Coach to go? What is your goal and vision as our leader, Brad? And he said, without any hesitation, I want us to be in 109 countries. And my question then straight away is, why 109, Brad? That's a really strange number. And he said very clearly that he had this vision, and he holds on to this vision to create world abundance through business re-education. So we are coaching thousands, 15,000 businesses each and every week within the organization. And our ambition is to make sure that every business owner has the opportunity to access the business re-education, the business support they need to make their business be the very best in the industry they are working. People then ask me, well, what does an Action Coach actually do? You know, I don't quite understand what you mean by a business coach. And so the easiest way to explain that to you very briefly this morning is to think of a sports coach. And I take the England rugby team here, Eddie Jones on the screen there. He is the coach for the England team, but what he hasn't done is teach the England players how to play rugby. They are there because they already know how to play rugby to an exceptional standard. What Eddie does as their coach is he takes them away as a team, looks at how they're playing together, looks at how the captain of the team is managing the team, and gives them advice, support and guidance in their game. And before they're going onto the pitch, before any game, pumps them up, gives them that motivation, that determination, the grit and the fire in their belly to go and play at their very best. He will then bring them up at half time, review the game, and at the end, whether it's a win, draw or lose, he will take them away and make sure they implement the learning from that experience before the next game. Tiger Woods and many other sports personalities have a coach, and Tiger's famously said, no matter how tough you think you are, you can't do it on your own. And they're his words in discussing the value of a coach and his support team. And we believe that every business owner needs that support. It can be a very lonely job leading your business. and it's imperative to make sure you've got the support and the structure around you to help you drive your business forwards. Just before I go any further, I should have said at the very beginning that we are broadcasting on Zoom today, and I'm very pleased to have Emily, one of my colleagues, in the background, and she is monitoring the questions, the answers, and any comments that do come in, and I know she'll be responding to you as we go through. We are also broadcasting live on Facebook onto various groups and channels, and if you're either listening to us on Zoom or on Facebook, I'd love you to tell us where you're listening from. We've had a bit of an ongoing competition within the organisation over the last few weeks to see who can reach the furthest. We had listeners from Cornwall yesterday, we had listeners from France last week. We'd love just to know how far we are reaching, just so we can make sure that we are connecting with you in the right way, but also just it'd be lovely to know for a bit of fun, really. So please do put where you're listening from and your contact details. If you have any questions, there is a Q&A box in the Zoom platform. I can see a lot of members on, or people registered and watching on Zoom. On Facebook, I don't have access to that during the webinar, but please do put any questions in the comments box on the Facebook page, and we will absolutely ensure we reach out to you straight after the webinar and later on today. So it's great to have you with us. So we've got a significant number of people on Zoom listening to this webinar this morning, and it's great you've taken time to be with us today. So a bit about all of our webinars, actually, a bit about learning before I get stuck into the leadership slides. And there may well be things that I say today that you've heard before. And that it's important to remember that you know, the context in which we're running and leading our organizations right now is different. So you may well have heard something before, and what I would just encourage you to do is not to think, I know, but to think, isn't that interesting? To have that open mind, and to sort of uncross the arms and sort of not think, well, I know this already, but think, you know, what can I do? Those words, I know, are the most expensive words in business. They kill opportunity and possibilities within every organization. So I just encourage you to have that open mind this morning and to think about how you can apply what I'm saying or what you might have heard before in a different way. And talking of what you've heard before, you may well have those moments where you've heard something, but alongside those, you may have what we call a BFO. And you're probably wondering what on earth I'm talking about. What is a BFO? Well, in Action Coach world, they are blinding flashes of the obvious. And that's where there's two pieces of information in your mind. You might have had two pieces of information before, and what I'm saying brings them together and connects that circuit and sets the light bulb on. Or it might be something that I say to you this morning that connects with a bit of information you already had in your mind. And again, it connects together and you have that aha moment. So if you have those today, I'd really encourage you to share them with us. We'd love to know what those are. I would also encourage you today to banish the black biro, banish the blue biro, and grab some colour pens. If you're homeschooling, grab some colour pens or felt tips from your kids and take notes in full multicolour. And the reason I say that is we have two sides of the brain. We have a very logical, theoretical, numerical side of the brain, and we have a more artistic, colourful, pictorial side of the brain. And by taking your notes in colour, by annotating them, by drawing pictures, those two sides of the brain will work better together. And I can guarantee when you come back to your notes after a bank holiday weekend, they will make a lot more sense if you have annotated them, brought them to life with a bit of colour, and drawn some pictures. So in terms of leadership, and this is a brilliant little diagram I want to share with you. We can choose how we want to lead. We can choose everything in life, and you've chosen to join me today. And I can see, yeah, great, there's some more latecomers just joining us. It's great to have you with us too. But we choose how we want to lead. We choose everything we do in life, and we choose our response as a leader to the situations and to our teams that we manage on a day-to-day basis. And I hope that you are not somebody who, when having conversations with your team, you are talking in a language of blame, excuse, and denial. I hope that when you're talking to your team, you are taking ownership, accountability, and responsibility. And as a leader, are encouraging them to also take accountability, ownership, and responsibility. Remember, leadership is about leading by example. And I just love this, this very simple diagram. It's a reminder to us all that it is so easy to talk in the negative, in the blame language, in the excuses, and to be in denial. And the easiest way to explain that is when we first switched on the TV. So first weekend of lockdown, there was many images of people climbing Snowdon and having barbecues on the beach, and they were in complete denial about the situation they find themselves in. They were full of excuses and blame. We as business owners, business leaders need to take ownership, accountability and responsibility. We need to own our response. We are all captains of our own ship, and I will come on to the boat analogy towards the end of this webinar. But we are all captains of our own ship, and I want to think of your ship as your business out at sea, and the storms, unexpected storms, have come in and are lashing the waves up against the side of your boat. And we have a choice. We can't blame anybody else. There are no excuses, and we should not be in denial at that situation. But what we can do is take ownership, accountability and responsibility for how we move our ship forward, how we move our business forwards. And in the boating analogy, we can put down the anchors and stay safe and make sure we wait until the storm passes. And whilst doing that, put in a plan of action of how we're going to drive our boat forwards, how we're going to move that boat into calmer waters. We may decide it's not safe to do that. We may decide we need to get external support and help, call the RNLI or another boat in the nearby waters to come and help move us into safer, calmer waters. Or we may decide to make better use of the resources within our boat, within our business itself. We may decide to redeploy people into the engine rooms, redeploy people putting up sails, redeploy people in losing weight off the boat. There are different things and different options we have. It's how we make best use of the resources within the organization, within the boat. But absolutely, by leading our organizations in a positive taking ownership, accountability, and responsibility, we will have that energized team. We'll be energized in ourselves, and we'll have the energy to drive our business forwards. If we start using a culture or adopt a culture of blame, excuse, and denial, we'll have a team that is half empty and lacking that energy and that enthusiasm to drive their roles forward on your behalf. It's really important to stay so energized and to make sure we're always fully charged and ready to take our businesses forwards. To think about the how rather than the why. In terms of making those decisions, I talked about staying in calm waters and planning. The decisions you make now in your business are going to have an impact on how your business goes forwards. The leadership you show right now and the decisions you take right now are going to have an impact on your business going forwards into the future. It's really important that we use this time as leaders to reevaluate, to manage, and to lead our business forwards in the right way, to take time to take stock and evaluate and to gather information, to do research, and to make sure we're making informed decisions and the right decisions so that we can drive our businesses forward in a really successful way. So I want to ask, what kind of leader are you? What is the motivation you have for your leadership? Are you somebody who's motivated by achievement, autonomy, and progression? If so, that is the kind of leader you need to be right now. Or are you somebody who's motivated by satisfaction and status? That is not where you need to be right now. That is a follower, that is not a leader. So just think a moment about what your motivation is in leading your organization. Are you somebody who's looking to achieve, looking for autonomy, and looking to progress your organization? And just going back to the boat analogy for the moment, are you somebody right now as an owner and a leader in your business who is working on your business or who is working in your business? Are you right now the captain on the bridge? Are you in a position of leadership for your team? Are you plotting a course to plan the journey? Are you setting goals, actions, and executing those to the best possible outcome? Are you scanning the horizon for opportunities and threats and ultimately steering your business where it needs to be? That is the kind of leader that you need to be right now. There are many people owning and running their businesses in the past that I've come across who are spending too much time in the engine room. They're stoking the fire in the business. They're doing the selling, the doing, and the making. They are blind to the possible opportunities and threats because they're down below in the business doing the day-to-day operational tasks rather than looking ahead. And they know the business is moving, but they haven't a clue which direction because, again, they're not out there scanning the horizon and plotting the route. They can't see where they're going. Ultimately, if you're doing that right now, you only have a job and you're not managing and leading your business. So where are you? What kind of leader are you right now? And is now the time to reevaluate and to change? Just going back to motivation, there are 5 levels of leadership. There are the highly capable individuals. There are the contributing team members. There are the competent managers, the effective leaders, and then the executive leaders. Where are you and what is your motivation for driving your business forwards? Are you simply a highly capable individual who makes productive contributions through talent, knowledge, skills, and good working habits? Are you somebody who contributes individual capabilities to the achievement of a group objectives and works effectively with others? Are you somebody who organizes people and resources? Where you need to be is somebody who catalyzes commitment to give a gregarious pursuit of a clear and compelling vision, stimulating high performance and standards in your team. That is where you need to be as a leader in your organization right now. And the behaviors we need to see are the intelligent, honesty, creativity, confidence, driven, and courageous. And courage is something that is so important right now in terms of where we find ourselves and where we find our organizations. I'll just pause there for a moment because I'm going to go shortly into a series of rules for the next 20-25 minutes. But before I do, I just want to check in with my colleague Emily. We've got a number of people on the webinar today, Emily. Is there any comments or questions coming in so far?
We've had a few comments on your unique analogies.
On which one, sorry?
The boat analogy.
Ah, right. Okay. Yeah. No, I love the boat analogy. It's great. It's a really, I love analogies that give a really clear explanation of the points that I'm trying to make sometimes. When you have that analogy, it works well. Thanks for that, Emily. Is there anything else, or are we just happy to crack on?
Yeah, we're all good to go.
Okay, brilliant. So the next sort of few slides, the next 20 minutes, I just want to give an overview of leadership. So how we can lead differently, where leading remotely requires more influence and command. And I'm going to talk about the 3O model, remote leadership model, and how we can make best use of technology as a tool, and the servant leadership mindset. So just thinking about some of these rules, I just want to run through them. I'm not going to have time to go into in-depth conversations or explanations, but what I would say at the end is you'll see at the end, we're going to offer anybody on this webinar the opportunity to have a free one-to-one conversation. We can pick up on different aspects, because for every leader, some of these rules will apply. Some of these rules you'll have understood and be implementing and adapting. I'm sure also there'll be areas where you know that you need to work harder on. That's the same for all of us in the roles that we have in our organizations. But the first rule, and it is the most important one, is leadership first, location needs to come second. So it's first and foremost about leadership right now in your organization. You may well have staff that are remotely located and working in different parts of the business. For example, I am working down in Kent. I have colleagues who are working, Emily, for example, is in Birmingham. I have colleagues in Rugby and colleagues over in Manchester. We are based around the country, but we all work for ActionCOACH in Birmingham. Just to give an explanation now, I normally drive up to Birmingham and commute, but because of lockdown, I'm down in Kent. But we are still running and leading our organisation. So it is absolutely, leadership is really important and comes above location. And the timeless principles of leadership do not change regardless of where your staff and your colleagues are based. But the 4 common questions that remote leaders ask themselves is, how do we know people are working? It's a really common question I have on many webinars. How do I know my staff are still doing the work that I'm expecting them to do? Are people getting enough social interaction, being really conscious that people are working remotely and maybe isolated, and therefore they need to come into the office? I mean, I've worked in local authority now had done for 20 years, just under 20 years. And there was this sort of underwritten rule that you can't work from home. You need to be in the office. You need to be having the social interaction. And yes, there is an aspect of that, but that shouldn't undermine the work and the role of you as a leader. Are we getting good feedback? And when we need to consider options, if people are working remotely, how can we gather that feedback in? And can we be as effective as we were when we were co-located? Don't let the location or distance distract from the fundamentals of leading your people. There are still tools and techniques you can put into place to be an effective leader. All it's about is leading remotely requires you to lead slightly differently. A great statistic here that 80% of white-collar managers have at least one direct report who works in a different location. And I've given examples of that myself. You know, when I was working for HS2, I was based in Birmingham, but I managed a team over in Manchester at the same time. And I also had colleagues that I managed in London. So there are many business owners that are managing teams remotely, regardless of the current lockdown. There are two major repercussions for leaders. The one is the method of communication that enabled them to succeed in the past have now changed. So we need to change when we're working remotely how we communicate. And the notion of a leader's sense of isolation is no longer simply emotional. The task of leadership is still fundamentally the same. The act of leadership has not changed that much. And we need to do the same things, but in a different way with a different set of tools. And I'm going to go through some of those tools with you this afternoon. But leadership, just the principles of leadership are the same, which just requires us to lead in a slightly different way. Leadership working remotely changes interpersonal dynamics. And I'm sure there are good examples and bad examples of how that communication has worked for you as a leader. But being seen is critical to leadership, and that does suffer in remote settings. So we need to think of other ways in which we can compensate for that. Virtual communication changes interpersonal communication. So we lose that face-to-face non-verbal feedback when we're talking to people. And Emily's in the background on this call now. When I'm sitting having a conversation with Emily, it is so much easier to understand, and for her, I'm sure, to understand what I'm saying, what I'm meaning, because and I'm waving my hands here, a lot of our communication is non-verbal. It's what we see and what we do, physical and visual. So we lose that face-to-face and non-verbal feedback. So we need to think of ways in which we can make sure that our messages are easily understood. We need to explain things in a different way. And communication via WhatsApp, via email, in particular, are so easily misunderstood. So we need to make sure and clarify and double check and follow things up with phone calls. Make sure, it's a simple way something is written in a text. I mean, the shorter the text, the easier it is for it to be misunderstood. But even in emails, you can write something in so many different ways and somebody can read it in a different way. So it's trying to make sure that our messaging and our communication is easily understood. And it's about finding other ways to receive critical cues from your audience and your team. So using technology as a tool, not as a barrier. We've got to make sure we see it in that way. And remote leadership depicts three, I sort of see it as three interworking gears that work together to propel remote working. And the largest gear is the most fundamental part of leading remotely, but it's based on a fundamental leadership principles. So it's about behaviors, it's about leadership, looking at the behaviors of your team. It's also, there's the tools and technology gear, and that's most important difference when leading remotely. So it's where you might not be comfortable using tools and technology, how can they impact on leadership effectiveness, and making sure you're using your tools in the most effective way. And then there's the skills, the smallest gear, but it represents the smallest concepts, but can cause you the biggest problems. Choosing the appropriate tool is really critical to your effectiveness. So it's about making sure you've got all those different gears working effectively together. Leading requires a focus on the 3O model: outcomes, others, and ourselves. So outcomes, we need to lead with purpose to reach your desired outcome. So we need to break down the barriers, break down the isolation, the lack of the environment cues, and the less repetition of messaging. So we need to be really clear in what outcomes we're wanting and communicate that in the most effective way possible with as much clarity as we can. We need to lead with and through other people. So we need to be as influential and when we're focusing and working with other people, and we need team members to be more engaged when you're focused on them. So you need to make sure that we're spending time with team members, engaging with them, and focusing on what the outcomes we want them to achieve as well. And also we need to overcome those skills and beliefs and assumptions. And I was doing a webinar yesterday talking about what skills and beliefs are holding you back in your business right now. So who are you and how you lead is really important wherever you work. We need to lead and show that we believe in ourselves and we believe in driving our business forwards, because the way we behave, and it comes back to that side of ownership, accountability and responsibility, we need to demonstrate that in how we're communicating and how we're leading our business, to demonstrate that so that other people can see how that works and see the drive and the passion that we have for our organizations. Leading successfully requires achieving goals of many types. Organizational outcomes, we need to have really clear targets and frequent discussions with our team. Communication is so important, and I've done webinars about the opportunities ahead, but the one consistent thing we need to be doing more than ever right now is communicating with our teams, communicating with our customers, communicating with our clients, making sure we've got clear targets and clear expectations and have those frequent discussions. Don't just phone up, speak to your team or have a conversation on Zoom sort of every couple of days or even once a day. Have numerous conversations. Make sure there's numerous forms of communication. Here at ActionCOACH, we have a meeting every morning, Emily, myself and our other colleagues. We then also have constant communication via WhatsApp, by email and by phone call. And then we'll just jump onto a Zoom call if we need to follow up and have a further clarity on a piece of work or something we're doing. So have really clear targets and expectations and frequent discussions with your team. Make sure people know in your organization what the team outcomes are. So you've got the organizational outcomes, but also the team outcomes. People must know what they do and how it fits into the work and success of a team and the organization. So Emily, I know on this call, knows that what she is doing is part of the bigger picture. I know that what I'm doing is part of a bigger picture. It's part of the overall team success here at ActionCOACH. So it's about making sure people know how their role and how their work fits into the bigger picture going forwards. And it's also about developing them as an individual, develop their goals and their expectations, setting clear expectations, establishing the rules for working together and how they can get support, and describe what good communication and success in their role looks like. As a team, do you have your outcomes, your goals for your organization and individual targets, KPIs? Do you share those? Do you hold each other to account? Do you set clear expectations? Making sure people know that what they're doing in their role, be it at home or wherever they're located, is contributing and how that is contributing to the wider picture and the wider targets. Making sure everybody knows and is being held to account for their own particular part or function of a team, their role in the team. So I really encourage you to develop an electronic dashboard using some great online tools out there. There's Trello, there's Slack, making sure that people, there's also Teams as well, Microsoft Teams, using the technology to bring people together in terms of goals, targets, and a focus for your team right now. And it really is about focusing on achieving goals and not just setting them. It's really important to have those clear targets and frequent discussions with the team. So I went back on my slide then. It's really important to make sure you've got SMART goals, specific, measurable, achievable, results oriented and time bound. It's really important to have those so that there's real clarity from you as a leader and to every member of staff. What are the quantity components of the work they need to do? How much time do they need to make it a success? And what is the quality that you're seeing and how you're going to measure it? Measuring something is really important. Setting measures in smaller chunks can be more effective and identify in a way of addressing any delays or risks. So breaking things down, breaking tasks down into smaller bite-sized chunks can be really effective, especially when you've got people working remotely. What you don't want is them feeling overwhelmed and not knowing where to start or what to do first. So break things down, but make sure people have a clear understanding of how they're going to achieve the outcome that you've set for them. And it's not just about being a leadership right now, about being a great leader, it's about being a great coach. So coach your team regardless of where they work. Coaching is an area where most leaders feel they can improve. And there's two reasons coaching remotely work is more complicated. Now, I should know this, I'm doing it day in, day out, is interaction needs to be conscious and intentional. And communication through technology creates more mental and social obstacles than it does when we're face to face. As I said earlier on, I can sit down with a client, I can sit down with a colleague and get a real sense of where they are. I can see how energized, I can see how switched on, I can see from their body language whether they get and understand what we're wanting to do and the points of which we're discussing. It is really hard online, but it's really important to set some expectations and to coach your team, to have that two-way conversation and to make sure you're not doing most of the talking. And I know that I am doing most of the talking in this webinar today, but to make sure you give your staff and your colleagues time to digest, to think, and to respond, to make sure there's pauses in the conversation and even time out, take a break, or give them some opportunity to write down, to lock in the conversation and to feed it and share it back to make sure they have a good understanding. And also the importance of great questions to start a dialogue. And always follow up. When you've had a coaching session or a conversation, always follow up with your colleagues and your staff. So have the conversation, give some time out, as I said a moment ago, and come back to the conversation later on. It's really, really important. I'm just going to pause there. Emily, is there any more comments at the moment? Or have you? I know you've been answering questions as we've gone along. I've seen you typing them in. But has anything else come up that you want to raise with me?
We did have a couple of questions regarding how to lead staff from home, but I think you've pretty much covered everything. So.
Brilliant. Okay, well, there's an opportunity for questions at the end because I've got a few more leadership rules to go through, and then we'll wrap up and just see if there's any more questions at the end. Thank you, Emily. Okay. Communicate in ways that really work best for you, best for others rather than your personal preference. It's really important to understand how your team want to communicate. How can I ask yourself, how can I help others to be successful? Ask your staff, how can I help you to be successful? Reference a golden rule for style and method of communication, which is asking others. Lead others in a way which work best for them, and use the DISC. I've done webinars on DISC today, but really try and understand how others operate. And my colleague and I, Glenn, and he knows that if he comes and asks me a question, wants to have a conversation, that I will want to know the impact on others and the team, and I will need time to digest and think before I respond. I know that if I go and talk to Glenn, he is very, very detailed. He likes to know that I've got a tested and measured proposal or detailed and reasoned conversation and proposal to put to him. And he will want to have the answers as well. He wants to know, have time to work through the detail and to make sure things work. He's very, very detail focused and will want time to respond. And will want me to have not just proposals, but solutions and different reasons for why I'm proposing a different solution. So it's understanding how your staff work and how they operate, what kind of personality they are. Are they somebody who is sort of works much better if you've just got bullet points and keeps things short and snappy? So what kind of people are you working with, and try and understand so that you can mesh better together and challenge the right behavior and get the right behavior and challenge the behavior that you want to see in your workplace. Ask people how they want to work with you using those neutral questions. So how can I help you to be more successful? I want to support you and help you to stay on track. And how often would you like for us to have a one-to-one? Find out what support they want and need. And of course, you may well get people who say, well, I'm fine, I don't need one-to-ones. And it's finding the right balance, but absolutely include them in developing a way of leading them that works for them as much as it works for you. Leading successfully requires an understanding of what people are thinking, not just what they're doing. Leaders need to see and be seen. So you need to see how you gather information needed to understand what's going on within the organization. You need to see what's going on. You need to be asking the right questions and finding out the right information. But you also need to be seen by others. You need to be seen by others, how they get their information about you and from you as a leader. You need to be visible. You need to make sure that you're being visible within your organization, even remotely. Managing, I don't know how many of you have a regular team meeting every day that you lead, but you also involve others in those conversations. You need to be more aware of the impressions that you make, and are you visible to your team, and what are they seeing? How often do you ask for feedback from your team to find out what they're seeing and what they're thinking about you as a leader? It's that 360 appraisal approach, making sure you're constantly reviewing your own leadership style and your own behaviors. Building trust at a distance doesn't happen by accident. It's only really got to work hard at it. Remote leadership means trust is harder to build and more easily broken. So there are 3 components necessary for high levels of trust to exist, and that is finding that common purpose. Do you and your team have the same purpose? And it's about building relationships and maintaining those relationships whilst we're all working remotely. Picking up the conversation, talking to your team, not just about work, but talk to them about, get to know them as an individual, get to know what motivates them, what's their reason for working with you and for you in your organization. Now is a great time to spend a bit more time getting to know them, getting to know what motivates and sort of drives them as a person. Try and unpack some of the skills they've got, not just the skills they use in your organization, but skills they may have used in previous employments, but not had a chance to use with you. Do you believe the people you lead are competent? By getting to know them, by understanding them better, by helping them to understand you, by the responses they give you, will help you to understand that much better. And motives. Are people willing to go the extra mile for you right now? And what can you do to motivate them to do that? I've talked in many webinars about setting the vision and the goal for your organizations right now, reviewing it. And it's about taking your team on the journey, pumping them up, driving them as much as driving yourself to drive your business forward. Showcase what you're thinking, showcase your vision, your projects, your work. Praise in public, celebrate success with your team. If an individual or a team has done something in your organization, celebrate that success publicly, both within your organization, but externally as well. That really motivates. The thank you and the praise goes so much further than anything else in terms of motivating your team and your individuals. And delegate in public as well. Show that you trust your team in front of others. Show that you trust individuals, and make sure to reflect the perception of fairness as well. So don't just keep delegating to the same person, but share it around, share the responsibility, and give people the opportunity to demonstrate to you that they can do what you want them to do and achieve and be the success you want them to be. I always had a saying in my roles as leader in the past, that if I have somebody still working for me in 3 years' time, then I'm not doing my job properly. We want to strive to lead and develop our teams so that they can be the leaders of the future, and they can go on and build their own careers and their own skill set. So it's really important to have that mindset as a leader in your organization right now. It's really important to identify the leadership results that you need. So select the communication tool to achieve the right success. For communication to be effective and appropriate, you need to strike the right balance between richness and scope. The richness is the one-to-one, the in-depth conversations, the tone, the expression, the body language, and the word choice you're using with your team. But obviously that is difficult to do if you have large teams. You need to balance that with wider communication, the emails, the newsletter, the recorded messages, the webinars, that all provide a broad reach, but they do lack the richness of that two-way, that individual one conversation. So it's getting the right balance. As a leader, you want to get to know individuals, and we've got the time to do that, to develop those rich conversations. But absolutely, it's balancing that out with that wider conversation and consistency. The scope is all about consistency, to make sure you've got consistent messaging and consistent and constant communication with your team on a regular basis. But it's also really important to be mindful of what you're trying to get across, who you're trying to communicate with, and how richly it needs to be done. So if you've got sensitive conversations or conversations that don't need to involve the whole team, choose how you're going to communicate and the methods and the process in which you want to communicate that with your team. So it's about choosing the right tool and maximizing that capability, or you'll minimize the effectiveness. So using technology at your disposal, so video, recorded messages as a real visual component, but choosing the right tool for the right job for you. As I say, video, recorded messages adds that visual component, but common file location. So having a SharePoint, having a shared area allows permanent and accessible sort of central communication tool. So I know that I can be working on a document, I know that Emily's working on a document, we can both be working on it at the same time and sharing and having that communication, but it also gives a sense of trust that there is not a locked down area in your organization, that, you know, files can be shared. There's a sense of transparency within your organization. Making best use of email, best use for broad reach and recorded information. If you want to talk to somebody individually, pick up the phone, have that direct, that rich communication, that rich conversation with them. Using webcam and video chat, the ultimate remote communication tool, but it's about using it effectively. Text messaging is great, but it should be really used for effective, more timely and urgent communication. And telephone and conference calls are great, but they are less effective option for one-to-ones and group communication because you can't see the verbal cues and the feedback. So try and have that, try and use the right communication tools for the right conversations you want to have as a leader in your organization. And then always seek feedback. Seek feedback to serve outcomes others than ourselves. So start with existing evidence, files, emails, notes, look at what feedback you can get, identify people you trust, and develop some trusted advisors within your organization to help you communicate and lead that organization forwards. Always ask open-ended questions, the why, the what, the how, the where, and the when. Be open and honest and not presumptive in your communication and when you're having those conversations and leading your organization forwards. Have all conversations as richly as possible and be patient with people. Give people time to respond and to contemplate and to come back to you. And have the conversations over time, develop and build that relationship, which I talked about earlier on, and allow others to prepare for that conversation with you. And really importantly, make sure you prepare for conversations with your team. It's really important that you examine your own beliefs and your self-talk. Beliefs define how you lead. So, what beliefs are holding you back right now? What beliefs do you have that can drive your business forwards? Good leaders require a relative healthy self-image. So make sure you've got that healthy self-image, that you're full of energy, drive, ambition, you've got clarity, focus, and showing the right level of emotion in leading your business right forwards. But a few warning signs to watch out for in your self-talk. So, if you're thinking to yourself, that was the worst idea ever, I can't do this, I'm a fraud, I'll be exposed. There are warning signs. You need to address those and address the self-talk monster. So check your assumptions, accept positive feedback as valid, and get help from others and seek support where you need it to motivate yourself, to drive yourself forwards. So if you're having that seed of doubt, it's a mindset thing, but seek support, seek guidance, and help from other people who can help you drive your business forwards. And it's about getting a mentor, getting somebody you can talk to in a safe environment so that you can then drive your business forwards with the right motivation and the right language. I'm coming to the end now. I realise I've gone through a number of rules over the last hour or so, and I'm coming towards the end. But so we've got accept that you can't do it all yourself, and that's what I've just been reflecting on in terms of seeking support and guidance, about finding a balance between being responsible to your organisation and taking care of yourself. Look after your organisation's processes and workflow, and identify areas where the team could handle your activities. So don't try and do everything. It's really important to delegate effectively and successfully within your organization, to find those trusted colleagues. And as I said earlier on, delegate openly and publicly. Give people an opportunity and do it fairly within your organization. And last of all, balance your priorities to be a remarkable long-distance leader. Know the difference between self-preservation and selfishness. Your values determine how you'll decide what's truly important. And it's really important that everyone has the same amount of time. The question is how you'll use it. We all have the same amount of time, so use your time as effectively as possible. And I go back to the point I made at the very beginning. Time management is a real choice, is really choice management. We all choose how we use our time, we choose how we respond, and we choose how we want to lead our organizations going forwards. Knowing your values allows you to prioritize your activities. So what values do you have? Who are you? And why are you doing what you're doing in your organization? What do you value? And what is the driver to drive your business forwards? Lastly, number 18. What kind of organization do you want to be? Does your culture match your vision? Do you have points of culture in your organization? At Action Coach, we have 18 points of culture. It's really important to make sure you have a culture that's consistent, that is known to everybody across the organization. If you're going to recruit somebody tomorrow to work for you, how would you share the vision, the mission, and the culture of your organization? How would you share what your organization looks like to work from, what it feels like to be part of your organization? Does it match the vision? What behaviors do you expect from your long distance leaders and staff? What skill gaps needs to be addressed? I've talked earlier on about making sure you review your skills of your staff and your team. And what is your plan for developing and supporting your long distance leaders? How will your organization support the remote team of your members? We're all on a journey. Make learning a process, a journey for yourself and for your team right now. It is really important. And the last rule of leadership before I come to an end is to think about leadership first and location second. Remember where I started on this webinar this morning is leadership is first, location is second. As a leader, we need to do the same thing, just do it in a different way. And we are the leaders who need to lead in our business and in our community. We need to lead, we need to have that passion. And now it's all about going back to your organization and leading from the front. I want you to be the captain on the bridge of your ship and not the person stoking the fires and the engines below. Just before I finish, Emily, is there any more comments or questions that have come in on what I've been saying?
I've been answering comments as you've gone on, but there is a question that quite a few people, like I think the new watchers mainly, that are asking, and they're basically explaining that the business isn't doing particularly well at the moment. And is there any help you as a business coach can provide to help drive people's businesses through the pandemic?
Thanks, Emily. Yeah, it's a great question to ask. And I'll come on to that in a moment. What I was going to ask those on the webinar today is just to list 5 ideas. It's a great starting point. What can you do if your business is struggling right now? What can you do? List 5 things you need to do to take action on in your business today. But the most important one to answer the question that you've just posed, Emily, is to develop a 90-day leadership plan. What are you going to do for the next 90 days, the next 13 weeks, the next 3 months to drive your business forwards? We are offering everybody on this call, on this webinar, a free one-to-one planning workshop. Come and join us. Come and have a conversation. We'd love to have you on a planning workshop with us. We'd love to give you a free coaching session. We'd love to talk to you. We'd love to give you a 2-hour complimentary leadership session with us. We can talk about your current constraints in your business, the current challenges. We can look at adjustments, shifts, and pivots you need to make now to work in the evolving marketplace. We can talk to you about your 3-year objectives in your business and what it means to you personally to achieve your 3-year target. One of the questions I always ask business owners when I first meet them is, why did you set the business up? What was your dream? What was your goal? And what was your vision? And then I say, what has the journey been like? Have you continued to stay on the bridge of your boat, or have you got more and more involved in the operational, the day-to-day, stoking the fires in the engine room? What are the obstacles that are likely to be encountered on the way, on the future and the way ahead? And we can start talking about how we can put plans in place to overcome those. So we are offering everybody today a free 2-hour complimentary leadership strategy session, either with myself or one of my colleagues. We all have, there's numerous coaches at Action Coach in Birmingham, and we all have different areas of expertise. I happen to be marketing and communications. I've got colleagues who specialize in different areas, but we would all love to sit down and have a conversation with you right now. Hopefully, Emily, that answers the question I think that was asked. Is that right? Is there anything else?
I've answered all the rest of them in the comments, so we're good.
Brilliant, brilliant. So we've been 50 minutes. We like to keep our webinars just under the hour. So just before I finish, as I say, we're offering everybody that free 90-day planning session and a free complimentary 2-hour leadership session. In addition to that, there are other services which we are offering. We are offering free webinars, such as this one you're listening to today. So we're offering a range of webinars, and it'd be lovely to have you join us for some of those. And Emily will put in the chat box, the Q&A box, details of those, so you can log on to our website and find out more. We're also doing the 90-day planning webinars, which I've just mentioned. We've also started up a profit club, which is a great organisation, great for you to come along and join us. It's only £10 a month, and it's an opportunity to sit down with other business leaders and business owners and to challenge and to talk and to mentor and to hold each other to account. If that would appeal to you, it is only £10 a month. It's meeting twice a month on a Wednesday at 6 o'clock for an hour, and we'd love you to come and join us for that. If you are a business leader or business owner right now that has got a bit more time on their hands, and you fancy picking up a business book and deepening and enriching your skill set, your mindset, we're also running a book club. We are just about to move on to a new book as of yesterday. We've just been reading the Purpose Revolution, a great book about mindset and purpose of people in the workplace. We are now going forwards onto a book, How to Make Friends and Influence People. And we'd love you to join us on that. We start a new book every 2 weeks, and we'd love you to come and join us reading a book with us. Please, we'd also encourage you to connect on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and visit our website, birmingham.actioncoach.co.uk, where we are constantly updating lots of information and giving details of all our complimentary and paid for services. And lastly, if you do want to get in touch, please do email us birmingham@actioncoach.com. If you want to book that free complimentary coaching session, leadership session, or if you want to have a conversation about any other aspect of your business where you'd like some advice and guidance, please do get in touch. So that brings me to the end. It's been great having you with us today. We'd love to hear from you again. We'd love you to keep in touch. But most of all, enjoy your bank holiday weekend. Take today as an opportunity to reflect on this webinar, to think about how you're talking to your staff, how you're connecting with your staff. And I'm absolutely confident that we are not going back to the normal situation we were experiencing before. We're working forwards to a new way of working, a new way of managing and leading our organizations. And today, I hope you found this webinar useful. I hope you stay well, stay safe, and look forward to connecting with us again in the future. Take care now and have a great afternoon. Bye-bye.